Hi class and welcome to Module 5. This is our last module, but it is the most important module that we've done because it is going to combine some of the other rhetorical methods that we've used throughout the semester with this particular essay as well. And you're also going to be using research with this essay. So it is a little bit more complex than the other ones, and we'll spend a little bit more time with it as well. So welcome to arguing with persuasion and using research. So the objectives for this particular module, as you might imagine, are a little bit more detailed than our last ones. We're going to work on locating, evaluating, and incorporating sources with documentation. We're going to demonstrate the ability to integrate thoughts with summarized, paraphrased, quoted, and MLA-style credited sources. We're going to be working with the library databases, which are going to create a works cited page. We're going to implement a balanced approach of the persuasive argument methods of logos, ethos, and pathos throughout the essay, and we'll talk more about that later. And then we'll apply MLA formatting rules to an essay and cite sources that are used to avoid plagiarism. We'll also continue with correct sentence structure and unified paragraphs so that our essay is constructed in a coherent manner and it makes sense and it is logical. So let's begin. What is an argument essay? Well, I think we all hear arguments on a daily basis, so we might have what we believe we know is an argument essay, but it's not necessarily the same thing when it comes to an academic world. But it is a genre of writing that requires you to investigate a topic, collect, generate, and evaluate evidence, which is a little bit different to some of our daily arguments that we have, establish a position on the topic in a concise manner. And this is one of the things that a lot of students struggle with. They actually have to take a stand on a debatable topic. So a debatable topic means something that can be argued for or against. So just like you hear in the news about the various controversial topics, such as the HB2 that's going on that people are arguing, it's a debatable topic because there's multiple views on it. Some people don't even necessarily understand everything with it, and so they have different opinions. But that is what an argumentative essay is. So you'll need to make sure that you take a position and you have to debate that topic. So what is the goal of an argumentative essay? Well, the goal of an essay is to get detailed research to argue about your particular topic and position. You want to make sure that you understand the different points of view, so you know what the opposition's point of view is. You are required to then take a position and support it with the evidence that you collect during your research. Argument essays also, as I just mentioned in the previous slide, they must establish a clear thesis and follow sound reasoning. So it has to say that the particular issue that you're arguing for needs to be implemented, or that the issue that you're arguing against is wrong. So it has to be very concise and clear, and then you have to use very sensible methods to support your case. So the structure is what we're going to talk about next, and we're kind of going to start from the beginning and go to the end. The first thing we're going to talk about is a thesis, and we've kind of already gone over a lot of that. It is in the first paragraph. You want to make sure that you set the tone early for your reader. You want them to know why, give them general information about the topic, why it's important, and why they should care about the issue. And then you want to present your thesis statement, again, stating that the issue needs to be supported or it needs to be banned, whatever that issue might be. And so you also have to think about narrowing that topic. For instance, if you were going to argue about the death penalty, maybe you argue about the fact that the death penalty is cruel and unusual punishment. Or maybe if you argue about legalization of marijuana, you only speak of it in regards to medicinal purposes. So that's how you narrow topics down that are so broad. It's really important, though, that you master this portion of the essay. If you don't, you will find it very difficult to write an effective or persuasive argument. So make sure you get your thesis, make sure you know exactly what you're arguing for, and make sure you know all the different opposition. So next part is using transitions, and it's very, very important. Even though I know we've talked about transitions during the semester, it's very important to use transitions in a argument essay because you need to signal to the reader where you're going with your arguments. They need to be within the paragraphs. They also need to be in the introduction and the body. So when you go from one paragraph to another, and when you talk about the rebuttal, which we'll talk about in a moment, that you signal to the reader that you're talking about the opposition. So in contrast to the opposition. So signal to the readers that you're making a change. It really is the mortar that holds that foundation together. It provides that logical progression of thought so the reader can kind of understand where you're going with it. They should wrap up the idea from a previous section and then help introduce the new idea in the next section. Here's some examples. Furthermore, and moreover, and additionally, and ultimately, these sort of comments make the reader understand where you're going with the argument. Nevertheless, evidence proves that. So you can see that they're strong words, and it explains and signals to the reader that you're in addition to arguing your point, or in contrast to where you're talking about the opposition. So these are just some examples. There's plenty of other ones to use as well. So part 3 of the structure of an argument essay is the body paragraphs. The body paragraphs are the bulk of your evidence. They have all your topic sentences, which back up your thesis. So, each paragraph should be limited to discussion of one general idea, and that should have a topic sentence explaining what that's going to be discussed. Allow for clarity and direction throughout the essay by having that one general idea in there. It creates an ease of readability and unity, that knowing that one paragraph has the topic sentence and that's all that's discussed in there. If you start going off into a different subject matter, it confuses the reader. Each paragraph in the body of the essay must have a logical connection back to the thesis, and usually, as I said, that's with a topic sentence and then the evidence that supports it. Explain how and why the evidence supports the thesis. That's really big. So you want to make sure you signal to the readers when you use your evidence how it falls into your argument. Part 4 is refuting. This is when you take the other side into consideration, and there are different types of strategies that you can use. You can actually dedicate one paragraph that just talks about the conflicting opinions on the topic. You need to make sure that you recognize and address the opposition's viewpoints. It's important because it shows the reader you're credible and knowledgeable about the subject, and the paragraph in most sense makes sense to do it after the introduction so that when you end your essay, it's on your own thoughts. There are some minds that think that it should be the second to last paragraph. So if you feel that works better for your particular argument, you're welcome to use it. I think it's stronger when you use it after the introduction. So you go ahead and get the opposition out of the way, and then you argue your point. So some strategies for refuting: you can acknowledge their standpoint and just summarize it openly and honestly, or you can accept some part of their objections to the opposition and talk about that in the paragraph, or you can completely refute it, oppose every claim, and say that it's not a real problem as they see it. So these are just some of the strategies that you can use, or you can kind of combine them as well. And part 5, which we've already kind of discussed, is the evidence. You want to make sure that you use different types of evidence. So this is where your logos, ethos, and pathos comes into to play, where you've got an argument essay that has, different types of information in it. It's not just factual with statistics and figures. It also includes expert opinions as well as stories of people. So you want to make sure that you include all these sort of things and explain how the other positions may not be so well informed based on the evidence that they provide also and the research that you do. So some examples of this is statistics, as I mentioned. That is an example of logos. It's a logical argument talking a percentage of things, and this is just a silly example. Carefree gum has 32% more gum, therefore buy Carefree. Expert opinion would be ethos. 9 out of 10 dentists recommend Crest, and we usually take what our dentists say as what we should do. So that's your expert opinions and gives that right, opinion. So that's what we should do. Historical precedents are also something that you can consider, and then you can also use anecdotal information about a story, or you can develop widely accepted moral principles that, for instance, equality is good, so discrimination is bad. Obviously, that is a morally accepted principle in the world. So those are just some examples. So part 6 is your conclusion. You want to make sure that your conclusion is very, very strong. Sometimes this is where students struggle, but to be honest, it's one of the more important parts of the essay because it's the last thing you leave the reader with. You do not want to introduce any new information in your conclusion. You want to make sure that you synthesize the information that you've already provided. You also want to maybe say more research should be done or a call to action. You want to make sure that it really hammers home that what the problem is and how it needs to be solved. So make sure that you put in as much time with your conclusion as you do the other paragraphs. So now we've come to the end of this PowerPoint presentation, and I hope you have fun with your research. You need to get started and go ahead and pick something from one of the prompts and get to researching so you can know your topic. And I will see you in the discussion board, and have a good day.